Honourable Member Abau.
Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker. My questions without notice is directed to the Honourable Minister for Bougainville Affairs. I have two questions, Mr. Assistant Speaker, to the Honourable Minister for Bougainville Affairs. Number one, given the recognition by the Bougainville Peace Agreement signed on August 31, 2001, that this national parliament has the powers to finally ratify the referendum result. Under this 11th parliament, this is now the 10th month, and having checked with the clerk, we have not yet established a bipartisan committee on post-referendum Bougainville. My question to the Minister is, would the Minister be able to provide recommendation for a bipartisan committee on post-referendum Bougainville to be established? The reason being, and the urgency of the matter is, that it is through the understanding of the Bougainville Peace Agreement by the honourable members of the National Parliament that when we are better informed and fully informed, that decision will be made. And therefore it is incumbent on this honourable House to ensure that a bipartisan committee is established at the earliest, since we are now completing halfway through 2023 and 2024 is not far away. Second question, Honourable Assistant Speaker, to the Minister. In my short tenureship as Minister for Bougainville in 2019, and having focused fully on the successful execution of the referendum process, one of the glaring issues that I noticed was the issue related to a concept which the former President and myself as Minister for Bougainville Affairs, and now the current President and his team of leaders in Bougainville, the issue of the reconciliation, peace building, and social justice protection to address the issues of vulnerabilities caused by the Bougainville crisis and to mitigate the effect on the society. Mr. Assistant Speaker, I hope the good Minister is aware of this important process, and that is that there has been thinking that there has been less effort on the part of the national government to fully support this important issue of how do, for example, Bougainville veterans, how does the lost generation, those who miss schools in the entire young 10 to 15-year-olds, those conflict dead civilians and combatants, and the wounded or maimed or disabled. How do the government properly transit them into better lives? My short stint as Minister for Bougainville Affairs, I recognize, Mr. Assistant Speaker, that area, there was a gap in terms of national action to properly allow this group of people to be settled through the entire peace process. And so my question, second question, Mr. Assistant Speaker, is can the Minister, is the Minister aware of this program, and will the Minister give some attention to this process, because properly institutionalizing the reconciliation, peace building and social justice protection to take care of such disadvantaged people, not only through the Bougainville conflict, but through, for example, disasters, tribal fights. How do displaced civilians properly re-engage back into society? we as a country have not yet properly institutionalized those processes. One of the examples is that many of our ex-combatants, both from Bougainville and our own soldiers, we have not properly rehabilitated them very, very well. We've forgotten them. And this is a question. Our nation has not yet been able to develop or institutionalize this important process. Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. I want to take this time and thank the Honourable Member for Abau for asking a very important question. Before I answer the question, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of members of the Autonomous Bougainville government who were here yesterday, and I think they are here in the gallery. I also want to take this time to acknowledge our Indonesian friends who are here. Back to the question, I want to thank the member for Abau, as a former Minister for Bougainville Affairs, for the work you have done to progress the Bougainville peace process. Mr. Speaker, I want to stress the importance of the question the Honourable Member has asked. As we know, Bougainville is a very special region in our country, and the Bougainville issue is very important and very sensitive for the country. I will be actually making a ministerial statement next week, Tuesday, which will cover the important points raised in two of the most important questions the member for Abau has asked, and my statement will address those important points raised in the question. But for purposes of answering the question, firstly, regarding the Bipartition Committee, I would agree there is a need for the Bipartition Parliamentary Committee to be established to progress work on post-referendum work. And secondly, while I have the opportunity, let me also inform the honourable members here, and also for purpose of awareness to the general public, that as we understand, the Bougainville peace process has three main process: autonomy, weapons disposal, and referendum. The process is completed. We are now in the stage of the referendum. And in 2019, the referendum actually took place, and it's more than 3 years now. The Constitution Section 342 and the Bougainville Peace Agreement Clause 311 requires for the result of the referendum to be brought before the Parliament to make a decision on the future political status for Bougainville. Before that is to happen, the Constitution also requires for both governments, from the Autonomous Bougainville government and the national government, to have consultations over the result of the referendum. And since the referendum has taken place, that consultation has been going on. So far, we had 3 consultations. The first one was in Kokopo, second one in Wabak, and the third one was in Port Moresby. And the important agreement that was reached, particularly in the third consultation, was what we call the Erakone Agreement, which was signed between our Prime Minister and the ABG President. Among other things, the important, 2 important commitments made is that by this Parliament, the 11th Parliament, will have to make decision on the future political settlement for Bougainville by 2027. And the other commitment is for the minister responsible for Bougainville Affairs to table the referendum result in this year. which I intend to do that. But before that has to happen, the technical team from the national government and the ABG have had an issue regarding the ratification or the process by which Parliament will adopt to make a decision on the referendum result. So that is an issue that our officers are dealing with. So from the advice I'm getting from the State Solicitor's Office to the Office of the Minister for Justice and Attorney General, and from the clerk, Parliament's clerk, is that before I actually table the referendum result for the Parliament to make a decision, that procedure needs to be in place. And in my statement next week, I intend to propose that procedure by way of a sessional order for Parliament, for the members of this House to debate and adopt that procedure by way of a sessional order. I think with that, I think I've sufficiently answered the honourable member's questions for now. Thank you, Acting Speaker.
Honourable members.